How are you?
I'm great, Tom. How are you?
Good. It's nice to finally see you.
Yes, nice to see you. And I promise you this time that I don't have any mattresses being delivered to my house during our interview like we did the last time.
I got some kick out of that when the phone rang in the middle of the interview, and someone it was the most pandemic thing that's ever happened to me. Is you were getting a mattress delivered in the middle of our interview.
Yeah, and had to chase that guy down my driveway, run after him in the middle of the interview and chase him. And he did come back.
How was the mattress?
That's good. It
Good.
was
Good.
great.
Good. Congrats on the documentary.
Thank you.
Have you watched it?
Yes, I've watched it. I had to give my approval before the final cut, and I made a few suggestions, and so I have not seen the final cut, but I'm not in any rush to see it.
How does that feel to have your life sort of on screen in front of you like that?
It's tough. It's tough to go back there and watch it again, because there were some tough times, and it's very emotional for me. So everybody says to me, "Are you going to watch it in the theater?" And I went, "No." So I didn't watch it in the theater because I think I would have squirmed like crazy with people around.
Yeah, I guess what's a story to us is something you actually went through.
Yes, exactly.
And your childhood factors. Some of my favorite parts of the film are about your childhood, and growing up in Nova Scotia. What was it like to see your childhood reflected on the screen in front of you there?
It's funny because I don't even remember that part of it. I don't remember that part of the documentary at all, if it was. You see, when I watched it with through a microscope. I was looking for things that might bother me or things that might not be right and all of that. You dissect it more than watch it as a whole. So I don't remember many of the sections of it. I'll watch it one day, but it's just a little too soon, a little too raw right now.
I understand. Well, I want to talk a little bit about some of the stories in there. And again, if it's a bit raw for you, just let me know, and we don't have to talk about as much as you want. Now, I knew you grew up in Spring Hill, and I had never really put your story and Spring Hill's story as a mining town, as a town with a lot of disasters in it,
Yes.
together before. What was that like for you growing up?
Well, it was very unusual, I think, because there were two major mining disasters, and also the town, half of the town burnt down and that was within a 3-year period. So there was a pall over the town for some time, and also I had friends from school whose fathers died in those mining disasters. So it was a very sad time.
And it's a mining community, so there was also lots of music and singing and all of
Yes.
that too. I mean, I guess some would say, I know in Newfoundland, I don't know if it's like that in Spring Hill, but oftentimes those songs functioned as a way to get through some of that stuff.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we had sing songs. We did. I mean, even in my own family, we sang all the time, and we sang with other people from the town. And there were concerts. It seems to me, if I remember correctly, it seemed to be concerts going on all the time, and there were tons of people who could sing. That's one of the reasons why I didn't think that I was anything special, because everybody in that town seemed to be able to sing. But that's sort of the history of coal mining towns too. If you look at, I don't know if it's true, but it seems to be in Wales and some of those in some of those countries where the coal mining was the primary industry, that there were a lot of good singers.
Yeah, Tom Jones says the same thing. He said, "We know where I grew up, everyone sang, so I had no idea I was a good singer."
No, exactly right.
What were you singing back then? Like, what were the songs you and your buddies and your family would sing?
Well, I listened to, I guess I listened what they called a hit parade at that time, but I grew up listening to Rosemary Clooney, Patti Page, who else? Bing Crosby, Perry Como, all of those people, and the songs of the 50s. I grew up, I was a child in the 50s, so I knew every word to all of those songs.
Like what? Like the You Wore a Tulip and I Wore a Big Red Rose, those kind of songs?
Well, that might have gone back a little bit farther than.
I know I'm into the 30s and stuff like that, 'cause
Yeah, I think you may be, but even so.
were you singing folk songs from around the community back then too?
I don't remember. I mean, I learned spirituals and things like that from a family, and actually one of the miners who was in the, I think it was not 1958, in the what they called the bump. Maurice Reddick actually kept a little pocket of men alive by singing in the mine, and they survived after being down there for a week. And his daughters, I used to sing with his daughters all the time. I used to have them up to the house, and they taught me all kinds of gospel music, and it was wonderful.
You had no way of knowing, right, that you had such a different relationship with music than everyone else you'd meet from then on,
No, I really didn't. I mean, they could all sing, I could sing, and we just wanted to do it all the time. And we did it in various forms in Spring Hill. I had a little group called the Freshettes. There were three of us, and we used to perform at little, I don't know what they were. Again, probably more variety shows and here and there. It was great. I just would sing at every chance I got.
And then you end up on Sing Along Jubilee on CBC. I thought this would be fun. Can you tell me what Sing Along Jubilee was and what it meant to you?
What it was?
Yeah, I mean, because here's the thing. I know what it was because I'm a nerd and I like folk music a lot. But I was thinking, when I saw the documentary, I said there might be generations of people who didn't get to see it. So I thought it'd be fun if you could just tell us a little bit about what it was and what it meant to you.
Well, it was, first of all, it was a summer replacement show for the Don Messer show, which was probably at that time, apart from Hockey Night in Canada, the most popular television show on the air. It was a summer replacement show, and it was a group of singers who were mostly from here, from Halifax and the area. And we just sang the songs of the day, many of them folk songs, some country. Freddie McKenna was a guitar player who taught us country music. I didn't know much about it, but I learned about it there. We did a little bit of everything. And we did the songs of Bob Dylan. We did the songs of Joni Mitchell. We did everything that was happening at the time. It was all covers, and we worked in a group, and they were all really good singers. And there was some really fine harmonizing going on. And I learned a lot.
What did it mean for you to get on that show?
Oh, it was great. I didn't think of it as a stepping stone to anything. I just was looking for a summer job. I thought, wouldn't it be great to get a summer job? I was in university, and so I auditioned. My brother was an intern at the hospital, and one of the nurses he worked with was on the show, and he said to her, could you suppose you could get some kind of form that my sister could fill out, and just to have an audition. And she found them and brought them to him. He sent them to me. I sent them in, and then I came down and auditioned and didn't make it the first time.
And then?
Well, then they tracked me down. They came after me because that was in my second year. So then they started in my fourth year. They were calling me all the time. We want you to come and audition. And so I thought, well, I don't know. Why is that? Why I really don't sing any better now than I did then. But they said, no, we just want you to come audition. So I went down, and that was that.
And then, I mean, then it all kinds of starts happening for you, you know, the show takes off.
Yeah, but then I taught school the next year. And then I got an offer to do another television show called Let's Go out of Halifax. And it was a show that went right across the country. It came out of Halifax, Montreal, Toronto, Winnipeg, and Guess Who was in Winnipeg, and so on, the Poppy family in Vancouver, and all of those people in between. Ray St. Germain was in Winnipeg, I guess, and we were all young people who just really wanted to make music and sing, and that's what we did.
So Gene McClellan was on Sing Along Jubilee as well.
Well, he was actually doing a guest spot on the Don Messer show. And Bill Langstroth, who was the director of that show, Don Messer, called me and he said, you got to come and listen to this guy's songs. So I went over to the CBC building and Gene was there and he was playing the songs, and at the end, he handed me a tape. And he said, here you go. And Snowbird was on that tape. I don't know what else was. Put Your Hand on the Hand. I don't remember exactly what was on the tape, but I couldn't believe, Just Biding My Time was on there. I just walked out of the room and I thought, wow, why would he give these to me? They're so good. And anyway, he handed them to me and I was happy to take them.
I bet. And then, I mean, then you record Snowbird from that tape, yeah. And then everything changes.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. By all means, that was the beginning of it all. And then the first couple of years are like a blur.
Yeah.
I was so busy all the time. And
what's your relationship with the song now?
It's still a great song. It's still as good a song as it was then. And I just feel very fortunate to have had it for my very own.
You don't mind hearing it? When I played it for you off the top of the interview, I thought, my God, is Ann tired of hearing this?
No, not at all. And as a matter of fact, it's kind of cute because I had such a young voice then, and it's much higher than it ended up. But and actually in the last year of my career, I had to lower some of the keys of the songs that I did. And a lot of people have to do that because you don't sing the same in your 60s as you do in 60s and 70s as you do earlier.
So now you're down to spread your tiny wings and fly away.
Yeah, now I am. Now I don't sing at all. I sing Happy Birthday occasionally.
Well, good. I mean, I hope they pay you well for it.
Yes.
Yeah. You say the first few years were just a blur, and I think that comes apart in what comes across in the film because, you were a pioneer, Canada's first female pop star, but it's new, so it's lonely, and sometimes it feels sort of miserable. I mean, you were surrounded by men, you had bandmates doing hard drugs around you, and at one point you say, nobody listened to me even though I was writing the checks.
No, they didn't. They really, I paid them, but they just did whatever they wanted to do pretty much. Now I had a band leader who was very good at trying to keep them in line. Well, he was pretty good at trying to keep them in line, but it wasn't always easy because they had minds of their own and the drugs and all of that.
How do you get through that?
I don't know how I got through it. I don't know how I got to the point where I just wasn't going to put up with it anymore. And I didn't. And we put together a band of guys who were first rate, and they were with me for, 30 years.
I'll reintroduce you here. I'm talking to Anne Murray. We're talking about Anne Murray Full Circle, which is a new documentary about her life premiering tonight on CBC. I want to play another song.
Okay.
And even though we ain't got money, I'm so in love with you, honey. Everything will bring a chain of love. And in the morning when I rise, bring a tear of joy to my eyes and tell me everything.
From 1972, that's Danny's song, a top 10 single for Anne Murray in the US and a #1 single in Canada. You get this feeling when you watch the documentary that you really needed another song after Snowbird. That Snowbird had become this, international success, and you were trying to follow it up and trying to wonder what was next. That song, Kenny Loggins, right? That song was written and Kenny Loggins recorded it, and he didn't make a hit out of it. What did you hear in it that made you go, yeah, I think I can do it?
I don't know. And I never thought of it as necessarily a hit. I just thought it was a really great song. And I loved the song. And I got it from the Loggins and Messina album. I just lifted it. And we did a cover of it. And Brian Ahern, who was producing my albums at that time, he, put the steel guitar on it and all of that. And it sounded really quite country, and but it was just a good song, and it started a kind of a relationship with Kenny Loggins because we finally met, and then he subsequently wrote a song called "Love Song," and I actually won a Grammy for that album, the Love Song album.
Did the Danny song have a different meaning to you? Because I know Kenny wrote that about his brother who was about to have a baby.
Yes.
And then you and Bill, your late ex-husband Bill, who I knew, you guys were about to have your first kid, William. Did the meaning of the song change for you around that time?
Oh, absolutely, yes. When I sang it, it was a good song, but as you get older and experience more, the lyrics become so much more important to you. And of course, when I found out, I didn't know the story behind the song until Kenny told me much later. It was for his brother, who had gotten married and was having a baby and didn't have a pot to pee in. And so he decided, or he didn't have, it was Kenny who didn't have any money to give him a gift or anything. So he wrote him the song, and kind of a nice gift.
I think you're the only person, I think when you're Anne Murray, you're allowed to say pot to pee in on the CBC.
I hope so.
I think most of us don't get to do it, but when you're Anne Murray, it buys you that. I wanted to ask you this now. I heard like Katie Lang and Shania Twain and other folks and Bonnie Raitt too in the documentary talk about the way you looked. They talked about that you seemed very comfortable. You came out in your bare feet and you were wearing polo shirts and jackets and all that. Was there ever any pressure from record companies or anything like that to look a certain way?
Oh, well, the pressure didn't necessarily come from the record company so much as all around me, management, agents. Maybe it came from the record company. I don't know. But I started out pretty casually, as you mentioned, with bare feet and didn't really care much about what I had on. But as time went on, you're on stage, you kind of just grow up and go, I want to look nice. And when you dress up, you feel better about yourself. At least I haven't done it in a couple of years, but I seem to remember that when you dress up to go out somewhere, you feel good. And if you're on stage in front of a couple of thousand people, you just feel better. You walk straighter, you do everything. If you're in something, first of all, that's comfortable, but that's pretty. So I went through that too, but I went through the whole glamour thing with the glitter and all of that. And some of that was great too. I had jogging suits that were complete glitter that were great. I had some fantastic clothes designers. The first one being Keanu Reeves' mother,
really?
Patrick. Yeah, she was my first dress designer. And and I had my second designer was Jewel Hallmeyer, and the third one was Lee Kineshita Bevington. All three wonderful designers, and all very different. But always, we always tried to find comfortable clothes to put me in, so that I wasn't self-conscious about being in the clothes, because sometimes I was. Once I went up in New York, I was doing the Night of 100 Stars at Radio City Music Hall, and with all of these people, huge names, and I saw everybody there.
Like who?
Yeah, well, I don't know. Esther Williams was one that I saw that just floored me, because I watched all her movies when I was a kid.
Wow.
And I don't know, I went back and forth with Anne Margaret, walked back and forth to the play. Everyone was there.
Right.
So, but Lee put me in a dress that I practically had to be wheeled out onto the stage in this dress. He poured me, I practically poured into it, poured and pinned, and then wheeled. That was the only way I could get to do this number that I had to do. It was pretty funny.
What that tells me, though, is, no one could sway you, though. Like everything you're telling me is, yeah, sure, people would say things to me, but you'd only do things if you wanted to do it, and that's rarer than you might think,
Oh yes, but you see, I was pretty open to doing things.
Yeah.
In the sense that, well, let's give it a go. I just always would say, okay, I'll try it.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't feel right, then I'm not going to do it anymore. Imagine me and growing up a tomboy and ending up on stage in jogging suits that were all glitter. It was fabulous. I felt like $1 million in those jogging suits. It was great.
I want to ask about this, but it's not my first time talking to you, and I'll let you know, like, if you don't want to talk about it, or if you don't feel compelled to talk about anything you don't want to talk about. But I noticed when you're in the beginning of the interview, I said, "How was it for you?" And you said, "Yeah, parts of it were hard. Parts of it were hard to watch." And there's a part of the documentary where you can see you sort of struggling with the idea of being a parent and being a touring musician. And this is something we talked about last time you were on. And you talk pretty candidly in the film about those struggles and that leading to your divorce. I think when a lot of people go through stuff like that, they just have to go through it once, and they don't have to go through it again watching it on TV.
And here you are asking me the questions about it.
For God's sake, I know.
Well, it's tough. And I did it for the documentary, but I don't want to be reminded about it, because it was very difficult. And anyway, I've talked about it there, and I'm not talking about it anymore.
Fair enough. Then answer me this.
Okay.
What do you learn about yourself maybe that you didn't know before from watching a documentary about yourself?
I didn't learn a whole lot. I just learned that, yeah, I had a job. I did it to the best of my ability. You can't go back there. You can't fix things. You can't do things differently. And I would maybe try to do things differently, but I don't know how. And I don't know how anyone can have a career like that and have a family and do both of them justice. I just don't.
What brought you back home?
Oh, I always say, well, you know all about it. You're a Newfoundlander. Everybody wants to come home. Everybody I've ever met from here wants to come back to the Maritimes, to Newfoundland, wherever. It's home.
Yeah, there's a line in the documentary you say, like, I had to be dragged kicking and screaming out of the Maritimes.
I did. I really did. And I didn't want to go, but there was no choice. I either had to do that or have no career.
How are your days these days? I love at the very, I didn't know when I watched the documentary that I'd be the first thing you hear in the documentary, which is you saying to me, I keep on forgetting that I'm Anne Murray.
Oh, yeah. And I do, except the last couple of days where I've been inundated with questions about this documentary, which will all pass. And then I can get on with my life or what's left of it.
I mean, that's meaningful to me, though, I don't know how, but that it just seems like a real chapter that you closed and now you're here and you got to talk. You got to be Anne Murray for a couple of days, but you're not living that in the past like that all the time.
No, it doesn't feel right anymore to be that person because I don't feel the same. If you know what I mean. And it was what it was.
It was pretty remarkable though, Boy.
Yeah, yes, it was when it was happening. And don't get me wrong, there were a lot of great times. I had a lot of really good times. For instance, my band that I ended up with for the last 30 years, we were a family. We were a real family. I mean, we used to have Christmas parties. We used to have Halloween parties on the road. We would decorate our buses at Christmas, have a contest, who could decorate their bus the best. It was amazing. We had golf tournaments with T-shirts, the Moosehead Open. We had, it was great fun. And we came up with things to do to keep us together. We played tennis all the time. We did a lot of things together. So they're not all bad memories by any stretch of the imagination.
No, I mean, they can't be. It was such a,
No, there are a lot of fond memories.
How's your golf game these days?
It's taken a bit of a dive, but I still play. I still go out and give it a go and enjoy the outdoors. Actually, I played 3 days a week this past summer.
Yeah, and it's taken a bit of a dive, though.
Oh, yeah. Well, you just have to settle for less. It's like everything.
Well, and, I feel like I already have the answer to the last question I was going to ask you, which is that, what was it, Tony Bennett's 95 doing his final concert and Mick Jagger's 78 and back still on the road. Lightfoot played at 82 at Massey Hall the other night. I can, just for the radio audience to know, Anne is already shaking her head no at me.
They can have it. I did it.
You certainly did.
Yes.
And if there's one thing you get from this documentary, I'll tell you, it's that you really did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Congrats on it. Nice to talk to you again.
Thanks, Tom.
My conversation with the great Anne Murray, the story of her legendary career, is told in a new documentary, Anne Murray Full Circle. It airs tonight at 8 p.m., 8:30 in Newfoundland and parts of Labrador. It can be streamed on CBC Gem.